Das Video ist eigentlich richtig geil.
And it is a huge deal. The reason why is one word, and that is foliage. Since Unreal Engine 5 came out, it introduced a revolutionary new way of rendering geometry called nanite. To briefly sum up nanite, every object you see in computer graphics is composed of tiny flat planes of geometry called polygons. And the more polygons you have in your environment, the longer it will take to render. This is why video games have developed a system called level of detail, or LOD for short. The further away an object is from the
Mhm.
camera, the less polygons it will use to render that object. This makes games run faster since there's less polygons that have to be rendered, but it is very time consuming to create all those LODs. Nanite replaces LODs because it uses dynamic level detail. This means you can have an object with millions of polygons without any LODs because polygons dynamically deform, lowering
Die Übersetzung unten ist nicht ganz akkurat, also,
the
ne?
amount of polygons on an object. A good example of nanite in use is this desert. If I come up to lit, nanites, triangles, we can see nanite in action. Every color is an individual polygon, and there are millions of them, without a single LOD being used. The biggest issue with nanite is that it did not work with foliage. This means we still have to rely on level of detail for foliage like shrubs, grass,
Ja, jeder kennt ja diese Bäume hier. Umso weiter sie weg sind, umso beschissener sehen die
and
aus.
trees.
Das ist halt, wie die Spiele gemacht sind, damit es überhaupt flüssig laufen kann.
Trees generally use billboards as the lowest level of detail, which is just a flat plane with a texture that, as you can see, does not look very nice. Here is
Mhm.
an example
Sieht
of
nicht
what a
gut
billboard
aus.
looks like. I have Unreal Engine 5 opened up, and in this environment, all the trees are using
Und da müsst ihr jetzt mal gucken, das sieht so krass aus gleich, als wenn das 5.1
level of
aktiviert mit
detail
Nanites.
because that was the only option. Now, if I move my camera far away, you can see that the trees change LODs
Genau. Man sieht ja jetzt, dass die quasi einfach nur 2D werden hinten, während er wegfliegt.
until they are using
Das
billboards.
sieht
But the
hässlich aus.
transition looks pretty bad. Notice how even the shadows disappear because billboards only block light if it's facing it. Now in Unreal Engine 5.1, we finally get
Genau, und
nanite
das sieht
foliage.
jetzt mega
To
cool
enable
aus.
nanite on foliage is pretty simple. You want to open up the static mesh, and within here, make sure enable nanite support is turned on, and this is unique for foliage. Select preserve area. That's how if we aren't too far away, the object won't disappear. And then press apply changes. I went ahead and did the exact same process to all the trees in this environment. Now when the camera flies away, there is no LOD transition
Also genau, die sehen genauso geil aus und Schatten werfen die auch noch. Und das Beste kommt erst noch.
or billboards. The trees retain the same quality as if they're being viewed up close, and the shadows do not disappear at long distances. There is no loss in performance. In fact, we gained an extra 5 frames.
Ja, obwohl es besser aussieht, weil die LODs
So glass and water reflection
sieht einfach so krass aus, mit einfach
it was
Realtime
so
ist.
bad that I was recommending people to not use glass, since the reflections were completely different from the environment.
Und das ist jetzt mega krass, die Reflection. Da müsst ihr mal drauf achten jetzt. Oh nein. Sag mal, bin ich wieder da? Bin ich wieder da? Okay. Ich gehe nochmal kurz zurück.
Bad that I was recommending people to not use glass, since the reflections were completely different from the environment.
Du musst jetzt mal gucken. Die Spiegelung, die ist so krass in 5.1. In Unreal
Right now, I
Engine.
have a previous Unreal Engine version open up, and this house's windows reflect.
Also jetzt noch nicht, der hat noch eine Preview in der vorherige Version.
Make no sense. You can see that we're getting reflection from nowhere, and same thing for this glass jar. And this is the same environment in 5.
So, jetzt kommt's.
But you will notice that there is no change yet in the reflections. And that's because we have to go into our post-process volume, and under reflections, lumen reflections, make sure high quality translucency reflection is turned on. Now we get a one-to-one reflection with our environment. We can better see this in the glass cupboard. There is an accurate reflection of the room. We can even see the table.
Das ist halt krass. Du siehst einfach alles. Du siehst die Fenster hinten, man sieht die Stühle, alles. In der Reflection da. Und das sieht einfach so gut aus. Die Spiele in der Zukunft, die werden so geil sein.
And windows
Da
within the
kann man
game
sich drauf
browser.
freuen.
The only downside is that the setting does lower performance, so there is a cost, but nothing is free, and now reflections work. Water isn't broken anymore because of this new setting. Before this update, to get true reflection, we would have to use planar reflection and then manually move it to lining up with the water. Now I can just enable translucent to get realistic.
Ja, einfach ein Knopfdruck und alles ist perfekt. Vorher musstest du diese komischen Vierecke, Kästen da hoch und runter bewegen, damit alles passt. Und jetzt ist es einfach nur ein Knopfdruck für Reflection. So einfach ist es mittlerweile. 5 Jahre noch und die Spiele sind einfach realer als Real Life. Ist halt wirklich so, ne? Ist halt wirklich so.
Without having to use a reflection capture. This also fixes reflections for large bodies of water. Notice how on the side of the viewport we have weird reflections.
Genau, an den Seiten haben wir so gesehen gar keine Reflection, weil nur der Stein da vorne quasi reflektiert wird, weil man ja nur diese Vierecke, die wir vorhin gesehen haben, platzieren kann. Und die kann man ja nicht überall platzieren. Es wird viel zu viel Arbeit machen. Aber da man ja nur einen Knopf drücken muss jetzt, geht das überall direkt. Oder beziehungsweise funktioniert es ein bisschen anders, aber auf jeden Fall ist es jetzt deutlich besser.
And to get rid of it now, just within the post-process volume, activate high-quality translucency reflection. So now we get accurate, large body reflections without any artifacting. Also, besides lumen reflections working with glass and water, Lumen Global Illumination has seen massive improvements. Lumen now has a much more accurate bounce lighting because it is bouncing light from the object surface instead of a voxel approximation. What this means is that our
Voxelnährung, okay.
is indirectly illuminated more and there's less noise. Right here is a simple room with a
Das ist auch mega krass, was da gleich kommt mit dem Licht. Wie schön das aussieht gleich. Also
the
gleich.
shadows are more illuminated and we got rid of the weird occlusion in the corners. Here's another example of just indirect skylighting in version 5, and here it is in 5.1. You can tell that the secondary bounces are more accurate and powerful. And finally, there's a lot
Das hier, wie das aussieht, obwohl das Realtime ist.
less noise when using emissive materials. In this example, there's a lot of noise when I move the light around. And here it is in 5.1.
Guck dir das mal an, Wolf.
You can't even tell that this is real time. It looks path traced. Lumen wasn't the only lighting system that got approved. Now the path tracer supports sky and atmosphere. Just make sure in your post-process volume under path tracing, reference atmosphere is enabled. Also, path tracing now finally supports decals and light functions. For those who want to use traditional light baking, the GPU light mask has seen massive improvement. First off, the light mask works. At release, it was crashing, but now since it is more stable, the quality of the lighting is better, and the denoiser has improved in dark areas. Also, the GPU light mask now supports sky and atmosphere right out of the box. Besides lighting, there's also an interesting change to
Guck dir das einfach mal an, wie das aussieht. Das ist einfach oder besser gesagt, ein Spiel, einfach eine nachgebaute Stadt. Wie das einfach aussieht, ne?
real levels can be. In past versions of Unreal, if you are really far away from the world origin, Unreal Engines
Das ist auch so krass. Hier musst du aufpassen. Wirklich hier.
starts to break. For example, I'm in Unreal Engine 4 and I'm very far from the origin. The widgets are starting to break apart because Unreal can't calculate what is happening that far away. Now in 5.1, the recommended area for an environment has expanded from 22.
Vorher war die empfohlene Bereich 22 Kilometer. Und jetzt ist es einfach
to
88 Millionen Kilometer. Kannst du es weit im Spiel machen, so gesehen, oder so, wie das jetzt berechnet oder so irgendwie.
million kilometers.
Es ist einfach so krass. Von 22 auf 88 Millionen. Von 22 Kilometer auf 88 Millionen Kilometer.
So as you can guess, we can create some pretty large worlds.
Man kann jetzt so riesen Welten erstellen.
Change of note is animation with the sequencer. Animating anything in Unreal is done in the sequencer with keyframes.
Genau, das ist einfach so.
If you want to move a sequence of keyframes earlier or later in the timeline, you have to select each one individually. For example, let's say maybe I want this ship to fly off earlier. What I'm going to have to do is hold down Shift and select every single keyframe and then move them back. That's how when the animation starts, the ship is already flying off. 5.1 makes this process a lot easier with layer bars, which make retiming keyframes a breeze. Instead of selecting each keyframe individually, I can select the bar as a whole, which will move all the keyframes of the object with it. So with one click, I can retime the animation, that's how it's sooner, instead of selecting all of them.
Das macht halt so viel
Those
Arbeit
are
weg.
all the most important major changes of Unreal Engine 5.1. Now, this was just my
Es ist
opinion.
halt so krass, ne, wie das aussieht.